Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is the upload that gets us to Saturday Nightmares live from New York, our live stream at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you all there. Before we jump into this very chilling set of encounters, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night-ending bonus upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. Strange encounter in Southern California cave. Hello, Jeff. Hope all is well. I'd like to share the following cave encounter with you. It was early February of 2019. My family and I were enjoying a day out at our local canyons. These canyons are located approximately 20 miles southwest of Joshua Tree. We had been going to these canyons for years and enjoying camping, hiking, and the occasional target shooting. On this occasion, it just so happened that by chance we found a cave. I won't go into details of how we found this cave in order to keep this encounter as short as possible. What I will say is that it's very well hidden, and by all indications, very few people may be aware of its existence. I will include a couple of pictures. The entrance is a medium-sized opening at the base of the canyon. There were a total of 7 of us in my group, a few nephews, my niece, her boyfriend, and myself, ranging in age from teenagers to early 40s. We decided to crawl through the opening and see how deep it was. Keep in mind, we all had our cell phone flashlights to use. The only person that had a headlamp was my nephew, early 20s. So he took the lead as we crawled in about 6 to 8 feet. To our surprise, the opening led into a cave. It was a narrow passageway, maybe no more than 8 feet wide at places. It appeared to raise to the top of the canyon ceiling at least 50 to 100 feet high, maybe even higher, as it's hard to give an exact height inside of this dark cave. There are also chambers in various places at the top of this cave. If one has a good setup, they can be explored by climbing up them. The reason I know this is because we have gone back several times after this encounter to explore, and we do take strong flashlights. Continuing, this cave gives a creepy feeling, perhaps due to the fact that it may be thousands of years old. Also, very little human trace is found. All we saw was a couple of glass candles, and that gave the impression that they were used as some type of ritual. Further in the cave, a single name was graffitied on the wall. No other trace of human activity is seen. As I mentioned, my nephew had taken the lead and the rest of us stayed behind checking this place out. As we're looking around, we hear my nephew call out. We couldn't really make out the words. He sounded muffled. So we walked in his direction. When we got closer to his spot, we heard him say, "Hey, Uncle, I saw something in here. We're not alone." Now keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, this was an extremely isolated spot in the canyon. We were the only people there that day, so I asked, "What do you mean?" and continued to ask him, "What'd you see? An animal? A person? What?" My nephew had walked up to us by now and looked scared and confused. He stated, "I don't know what the hell it was that I saw, but it was no animal. At first I thought it was a person, but I really doubt it now. Let's get out of here, Uncle." Despite the fact that he's shaken up, I wanted to go and look for myself, but had a strong gut feeling that we should probably leave immediately. So I went with my gut feeling and got out of there. As we exited the cave, I asked my nephew to describe what he saw. He was having a hard time talking and seemed to be getting a panic attack. So I reassured him that we were okay and nothing was going to hurt us. I gave him a few moments and encouraged him to calm down. When he regained his composure, he stated, "Uncle, I don't understand what the F I saw." As I was walking through the bend in the cave, my headlamp captured a creature that was in a crouched position with its back against the cave wall looking at me. It happened so fast that as soon as my light hit it, it ran deeper into the cave on 2 feet. My nephew even stated that he heard the sound of its feet hitting the cave floor as it ran. He also said that the bottom part of its face was red in color. I tried to get more detail, but he was so scared by this encounter that he couldn't remember. I have a feeling his mind doesn't want him to remember, or he's trying hard not to bring it back to his memory. The reason I say this is because a few months after, I asked him about the encounter again, and immediately he got uncomfortable and said the same thing. I can't remember anything else. Just the red lower part of its face, and maybe brownish in color or dark. He quickly changed the conversation. My nephew said he will never go back into that cave, and till this day he has not. We have gone back to explore a few times and have actually gone in twice as far, but have never encountered whatever my nephew saw that day. A couple of months back, we found a few drops of blood splattered on the cave wall deep inside. We don't know how far this cave goes, but we still haven't hit the end, and haven't found a second entrance. My son has gone further than us and stated that there were scattered bones deep in the cave floor. Also, out of the times we've been there, we have never bumped into anyone else. I believe my nephew saw something. There's no doubt about it. Was it his imagination? Highly unlikely. Was it a case of misidentification? Yeah, maybe a cave rat or a bat. Laugh out loud. I highly doubt that. I did ask my nephew if he had seen a light source, flashlight, lamp, etc., being used by this thing he had seen, just to make sure that it was not a person. He stated no, there was no light source. It just ran deep inside the pitch darkness of the cave bipedally. We shut off all our lights inside this cave in order to see how dark it would be, and it felt as though we were being suffocated by this darkness. There is no way a person is going to run in that complete darkness without seriously getting hurt. Now, this is my thought on the creature my nephew saw. It may be possible that the creature heard my nephew walking. It was in a crouched, ready-to-attack position facing him, but I believe the creature heard the rest of us and or picked up our scent. Realizing my nephew was not alone, it fled. I think this encounter would have had a completely different outcome if my nephew would have been alone. Only time will tell if we will have our own encounter with this creature. Thank you for letting me share my encounter, Jeff. Have a great day. Today's second subscriber submission. My encounter with a Sasquatch. Hello, Mr. Nadolny. My name is Hannibal. I sent you my experience involving a Sasquatch or a group of Sasquatch that I had encountered while on duty. Hello, Jeff. I have quite a few experiences to share with you, my friend. I have never shared any of my experiences on any social media platforms. I have always been reluctant because I worked as a deputized officer of the county I lived in. I was an animal control officer for over 8 years. We enforced all laws involving domestic and wildlife, including animal cruelty investigations. I've never done this, so I have no idea how this is done, brother. I've had quite a few crazy encounters while on duty, one involving multiple officers witnessing more than one cryptid. In all of my encounters, I was armed, but it didn't matter. I once was chased out of the forest by what I believe was a Sasquatch after putting down an injured deer. I had trekked a good 2 miles by foot to find the injured deer, who was lying in a very shallow creek bed. Its neck was visibly broken, but it was still alive. I asked myself, how the hell did this happen? The deer couldn't have just fallen into this small creek bed and snapped its neck. The drop into the creek bed was only 3 feet. I also noticed a foul smell in the area, and it was not coming from the deer. It was a musty swamp smell, and it was awful. Anyway, I proceeded to put the poor animal down. After I fired my shot, I heard the most bone-chilling yell, followed by a guttural growl. I looked in the direction that yell came from, and a large dark shadow peeked from around a tree, maybe 20 feet away from my position. I drew my .45 on the figure and warned that I was an officer and armed. That's when I noticed red eye shine. I pulled my flashlight out and aimed into the shadow's direction. That's when I noticed the size of this joker. I'm just under 6 feet tall, and this thing was every bit as 7.5 to 8 feet tall. I couldn't see much detail because as soon as the light hit its eyes, it darted back behind the tree and growled again. All I got was a glimpse of dark fur and a huge hand. From what I remember, the skin on the hand was like an ape, kind of a dark grayish color. After witnessing this, my mind went into survival mode. All I wanted to do was get the hell out of there. I had about 2 miles of hightailing it to do. I knew it would be a mistake to try and run because this creature would definitely outrun me. It was the longest speed walk out of that forest that I ever had to endure. The whole time I had my .45 and flashlight out checking the trees. I heard more than one set of footfall behind me as I noped out of there as quick as I could. I was harassed my entire trip back to the truck. I heard whoops, yells, growls, and what sounded like branches breaking. It was a frightful experience, but it wasn't my first rodeo with what I am certain was a Sasquatch. Looking back, I'm pretty sure the deer's neck injury was inflicted by one of these Sasquatch that followed me out. Anyway, after I safely made it back to my vehicle, I quickly peeled away from the entrance to the trail that I was on and headed towards the ranger station to inform them what had happened. I reached the ranger station and told the 2 officers on duty that I had been chased out of the forest by some nut jobs. After all, I didn't want to seem like the nut job myself by saying Bigfoot chased me out. One officer laughed, but the other officer frowned and said, "What you encountered was no crazy person." Then both rangers proceeded to tell me what I encountered was a Bigfoot. They told me that they have encountered them as well. No joking, no laughing. They were dead serious. Both rangers said they won't even walk the trails after a certain time because of the territorial behavior of these creatures. I have had quite a bit of experience. If you'd like to hear more, I can be reached at this number. Your friend, Hannibal. Well, I will be texting Hannibal tomorrow morning or afternoon sometime, and hopefully we can get him on the show to share some of his experiences as a former animal control officer. I've had one other animal control officer reach out to me. She was a sheriff at one time and had been in a bad accident, and she wanted to stay in law enforcement, so she became an animal enforcement officer. Well, she had told me about how dogmen, especially dogman and other kind of cryptids, like to use the kudzu as cover on trails, that they build trails through this kudzu and travel along the roadside and peer out, waiting for roadkill or a large enough meal for them. So anyway, I will be contacting him. Hopefully we can get him on before I go to the Conjuring House or right after. All right, let's get into today's 3rd subscriber submission. Today's 3rd subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, I've been watching your YouTube channel for a while now. Today I watched the video that featured an interview with Greg and his experience in Australia, particularly Victoria. When I was young, my parents told me about a time they were driving along a road out near Woods Point. There were some other cars in front of them when suddenly something massive jumped across the road in front of the lead car. My parents only catching a glimpse of the shape before braking hard. My parents and other drivers then exited their vehicle while the lead car driver raved about something massive that crossed the road. There was a bit of conjecture about what exactly it was. Too big to be a dog and a wrong shape to be a roo, or farm animal. It was even suggested that it may have been the legendary big cat that is said to haunt the forests of Victoria, but even that's hard to sell. Then my family moved to a small rural town about 2-hour drive from Melbourne. The small town consisted of a main street primary school, fuel station, grain shed, and pub. At the time, the area around the town was farmland that led to a heavily forested hills. These hills my family moved to. Life was fairly normal, but there was always this overwhelming feeling that something was watching. One particular cold weekend, a thick fog surrounded our property. Strangely, it only came to the tree line. The dogs went berserk, barking at this impenetrable wall of fog and acting restless, sniffing and huffing at the air. Weirdest of all, the sheep we owned had all bundled themselves into a tight circle at the very center of the paddock, back to back, looking in all directions. Not a single noise came from them. We had heard noises that were dismissed as kangaroo bounding through the forest. It, however, to me, honestly sounded like heavy footfalls of a person walking, and not the crashing of roos in the brushland. Another time, my brother and I were walking along our front fence line, discovered a pile of what can only be described as visceral remains of something. It was very fresh, however, the body of whatever it was nowhere to be seen. We decided to tell our dad, who then came back with us to investigate. Strangely again, when we got to the area, we couldn't find a trace of the viscera. It's not that we had forgotten the location. The remains were gone. No trace. It can't just disappear, right? Even my dad had said that without the dogs with him, he felt like he was being watched. Further up the hill, a local man had claimed several times that he had sighted large predators in and around his property, but he never had any solid evidence. Years later, the family again moved, this time to western Victoria. We lived near a popular lake that was surrounded by bushland and scrub. There was even a dry swampland area nearby. This bushland was dry and sound traveled very easily, which meant you could hear campers and the occasional dirt bike without much effort. However, when the brush went deathly silent, that's when it got creepy. One time I was walking along a fire trail to get to the lake. Looking out for snakes was high priority. However, as I continued to walk, I had the strangest feeling that I was getting stalked, matching my footsteps until I intentionally took a misstep and heard a very distinctive crunch of the gum leaves and bracken fern. I froze and looked into the bush. There was nothing I could see. I called out to my brother, thinking maybe he was joking around, but no answer. I turned around and walked back, but sprinted the last few meters of the trail back to our house. My brother was inside playing his Nintendo 64. There were nights the bush was so dark our mind would play tricks on you, but it honestly felt like something was watching from out of the darkness. One Christmas night was particularly notable, as being restless kids, my brother and I couldn't sleep. However, as the night drew, we started to hear weird noises. It was like a vibrating hum that set your nerves on edge, like anxiety. Then the sounds changed. They became like, it's hard to describe, but it came from one side of the house, then from behind the house, sounding like a muted animal call. I can't explain it, and have no logical explanation for the noises. Then, for years, nothing strange happened. Stories were shared amongst friends, and nothing new besides an odd ghost story here and there. Then I started working with a friend of mine, clearing paddocks of dead trees and stumps for small firewood business. We traveled a lot, usually along half-forgotten and unsealed back roads. Some roads were so overgrown I wondered out loud on several occasions. It was a miracle we never got lost. Sometimes I would drive a front-end loader, while my mate would drive a light truck, and we would meet at the area before beginning work. It was one of these back roads that I had my personal experience. It was mid-afternoon, maybe 3 p.m. I was traveling at a steady pace as the front-end loader had speed restrictions, watching the red dirt road in front of me, making sure not to veer into the tall grass that grew right up to the roads. I glanced out my right-hand window and pushed the brakes to slow down. From where I sat, I could see clear across a paddock of dried grass, clear across to where it met the forest scrubland, maybe less than 150 meters. I seen something, honestly. I thought it was a man in camouflage suit, but I had never seen a real ghillie suit, only in movies. As I kept looking at the shape, it never turned around. I kept my eyes locked on it the whole time, racking my brain. Is that a horse standing on its hind legs? No. Is it a sheep or a goat? Maybe. No white wool. Just this massive, brownish thing that stood easily 9 feet tall. The fence posts nearest me are 4 feet tall. The posts near to it came up to its hip. Focusing in the sunlight was hard, and I blinked tears, but I tried looking again and couldn't see it. I was really wigged out about that, and I remember excitedly telling my mate, who responded with a, "Yeah, righto," and that was it. No more was said of it. When I came home, I told my partner, but again I felt as though my story was dismissed as wishful fantasy. I never had an outlet to share my experience without being treated as a whimsical farce. My fault, I suppose, as I expressed belief in all things like Fey, Bigfoot, and Sasquatch. Funny how every country has their own version, Dogman, and the like. I've tried to talk to people about the bunny yip and the yowie, but it's not taken seriously. Recently, a woman claims to have encountered one that she threatened with a humble cricket bat. I've spoken to Aboriginal friends about their legends, but refuse to discuss certain things, as they are taboo, and I don't wish to offend. All I can really say is Australian wildlife has evolved to survive. But by any means, venom or camouflage, if there is something out there in the forests and scrub, it knows how to avoid humans at all costs. Anyway, that's all I've got. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but to me, at least I told someone. Sincerest regards, your friend, GF. P.S. Keep the awesome videos coming, mate. They're fantastic. Today's 4th subscriber submission. Thank you, Mr. Jeff. I hope you don't mind. I call you Mr. Jeff. A little bit about me. I'm 65 years old. I'm a backyard mechanic. I mostly dealt with muscle cars like Camaros, Novas, Chevelles, Impalas, 60s through 70s. I went into the Marine Corps Reserve in 1978 through 83, honorable discharge. I had about 4 auto accidents that hurt my back, got pins and screws in my neck now, disabled, but not in a wheelchair. I broke up with my ex 11 years and became homeless. Now I'm taking care of my crippled sister. Anyway, in 2018, I went to Louisiana, then to Johnson, Tennessee, close to Davy Crockett's hometown. I moved back to Muskingum County, Ohio. Me and my son, I'll call him Big D. He's about 5'9", 390 at the time. Around July of 2018, we were camping out of my 2003 Chevy Z71 four-wheel drive pickup. We stayed out about 5 days fishing along the big open gravel parking lot in Dillon Powelson Wildlife Area called the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, about 2,700 acres of state wildlife area. Along the Licking River, which runs from west to east into the Muskingum River at our Zanesville Bridge. Yes, the bridge is a bridge. On the 5th day, on a Friday, I believe, or a Saturday, I'm not sure, I slept in the front driver's seat. Big D slept in the back under the forward cap. I put on the back to keep our stuff from getting wet when it rained. When Big D moves in the back, the whole truck moves back and forth every time he moves. Anyway, I wake up at around 6:35 or so in the morning, still dark. I decided to change my socks and underwear, so I got up, opened the back hatch, and grabbed my sock, and went back and saw a female doe that came off the railroad tracks that stretches along from east to west through the whole wildlife area for miles and miles. She's grazing, eating grass. She raised her head up and looked at me, sniffing the air. Then her huge white tail flapped rapidly back and forth. Then she darted toward the riverbank, going from south to north, then west along the riverbank, about 30 feet past a short patch of trees. So I just got back inside the driver's seat, took my boots off, removed my socks, put my boots back on, turned on the radio and listened to a few minutes, then realized I had forgotten to grab my underwear. So I got back out, opened the hatch once again, grabbed a clean pair of underwear, turned around, and as I started to close the hatch, I noticed this huge dog-like thing standing in front of the patch of trees where the doe passed. I thought to myself, that's not a coyote. It's too small. It's not a wolf. They ain't much bigger. Not a big dog at others. It looked at me, and I thought to myself, what a huge, beautiful creature. I looked at its head. Damn it. It was 2.5 feet wide, I thought. Then I noticed its head was almost the same as its width. Then I noticed it was all yellow, the same color as the 3.5 foot tall grass in the field in front of about 30 feet. I couldn't see its feet because of the yellow grass. Then I looked again, noticed it had a longer front leg, but huge outward chest with what looked like mange or something. Then I noticed it had a short mane like a lion, almost the same color as well. Then I noticed it had human-like arms with biceps like a bodybuilder but longer than a man's biceps. Its back legs were shorter but well-muscled and thick. Then I noticed it had long black straps of hair all along its entire body, maybe 3 to 4 inches in length. I heard a woman say it was feathered, so I said to my son D, wake up and look at this dog thing I'm seeing. But he said, Dad, I'm trying to sleep. Let me sleep, as he rolled over and the whole truck moved from side to side like a moving train. I said, damn it, D, come on, sit up and look at this dog thing so no one can call me a liar. He said, damn it, Dad, I'm trying to sleep. I said, boy, no one's going to believe me. Then as I said that, the dog thing cartoonishly pranced around like a dog in Longhorn Foghorn cartoon. It sniffed the air and looked at me the whole time. It turned around. Then it was gone lickety-split, headed the way the doe had gone. Then Big D sat up and said, Dad, now I gotta go to the bathroom. I said, man, no one's gonna believe I saw this dog thing. Big D rolled out the back, climbing out instead of me dropping the tailgate. I said, crap. Got back inside the front seat. As Big D climbed into the passenger seat, he asked what time it was. I said 7:08 or thereabouts. I told my son no one's going to believe me about that dog thing I had seen. Big D said, I believe you, Dad. Then a sheriff drove into the parking lot and told us if we weren't fishing, we couldn't just sit there. I told him I had fishing poles, but that we were leaving anyway. I went to my older sister's later that day and looked up dog-like things on YouTube and found Dogman encounters. I can't think. Well, that's my story, Jeff. Not a scary one, but it's the truth nonetheless. You can tell this experience just the way I wrote it, Mr. Jeffrey. You decide whether you want to share or not. Here's the thing, I have nothing to hide. You can't unsee something like that. They can call me a liar and I don't care. That's my experience and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for allowing me to share my experience. Keep up the good work that you do. Bye, Mr. Jeff. Tonight's fifth and final subscriber experience. Hi, Jeff. I love your show and all that you do for the Dogman family. May have had a possible Dogman or other cryptid sighting in my backyard in good old Superior, Arizona. It was about an hour ago from when I started writing this and sending it along to you. My brother and I were talking about stuff, how funny it all started with our conversation, And then our cat, he notices something outside, so he jumps on the windowsill and looks out. I look to where he's staring, and I see a shadow moving around in my mom's garden. I saw it walking back and forth a few times, so dummy me and curiosity got me. I knocked on the window just to see what it was, and then as soon as I did, this thing stands up, and I see a bony gray shoulder. I don't know until my brother told our dad that he saw it too. He said he saw eye shine and the shoulder. He thinks it's a gargoyle. I think it was a dogman or some other type of cryptid. I don't know what to think because maybe 2 weeks before this, my other brother and I saw eye shine in the creek in our backyard, and my cat noticed it. And thank goodness he was on the roof of my dad's pool room. We have a pool table, and it's his workshop / garage, so he was closer to it, and he was oblivious when he spotted a lizard, so he's entranced with that, and my brother and I with the thing in the creek. I do hope it was something else, but I felt this thing staring at me, or whatever it was, maybe a crawler. I feel all of this is connected since I saw a skinwalker in the guise of a mangy-looking coyote around 2018. I traveled back home, and then a couple years later, my older brother, one who saw the first sighting I mentioned, and I heard the darn thing, the crawler or lurking thing, and now this gray thing. This is all overwhelming for me, so much so I want to cry. Then the skinwalker sighting scared me since we locked eyes, and thank God haven't seen it since. Heard there's one supposedly about 2 hours or away from here on the res. I've seen some crazy stuff in paranormal, and I guess I want closure or reassurance. I know God and the angels protect us, but we have been seeing it. Seeing is my goodness. If this isn't a sign of end times, I don't know what is. Thanks for all of you do, and for wanting to reach out to us all with your YouTube channel. God bless you and your family. Oh, thank you. All right, folks, I hope to see you all at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Saturday Nightmares, live from New York. Guys, thank you for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are definitely dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about. It may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.